When everything goes smoothly in a tutorial, what do you learn? Are you perfect at the knitting machine? If every time you sit down, everything goes 100% smoothly for you from the cast on to the cast off? If so, this video is not for you. You can stay anyway. Please do. But if you're like me and the rest of us who struggle with some of the simple things on the machine, this video is for you. Stay with me and I'll show you how not to make this dog coat. Yes, this little thing gave me so much trouble. True Tracy Way at full speed on this one. Stay tuned. This is the schematic for the dog sweater. We are starting at the top, just below that top band of ribbing, and working down towards the narrow end at the bottom. The dark squares in the middle are for the armhole. Okay, we're going to start with casting on. Find your 0 and whatever the number of stitches was on either side. I needed 2 cast on combs and the little seam between the two. Always try to get that right at 0 so it balances nicely. Don't recall offhand how many stitches that was. Make sure you get all the hooks into the stitches on both sides. You don't want the yarn going under those unused hooks. Just the hook to the right of the last stitch. So now we're going to push all the needles that were out of work into work with the row that we just did. This little tool is, oh, don't forget him. This little tool is very handy for that. I think I was counting here. Pushed one back. You can see how it is now under that one. Now going to push the carriage back to the left. Might be a little bit tough to push, but just be gentle. Wiggle it a little bit because sometimes the needle butts get out of line. There's my little fishy holding down the end of the waste yarn. Now go back to the right. And oh, the tension wires have gotten tangled. What else is new? You always have to make sure your waste yarn is loose enough that it's not pulling too far down on the tension wire and that knob is set loose enough. It's still pretty tight. You can see the tension there. So pull out more yarn and go all the way to the end. Make sure you go past the last stitch and check that it's knit off. I've done all the required rows for the waste yarn now, and I've cut the yarn, reset the row counter to 0, and thread up the main yarn. I'm trying to do this one-handed. I don't recommend that, but I've gotten a tripod since I filmed this, and I'm not going back to refilm it. So I just put the clip weight on my yarn and start going across. Oh, and you can see how tight that is. Let's fix that. Looks like the top tension knob was too tight. I can never remember which way to turn it. So just turn it. All right. Trying to get across there and back. I quickly realized that my tension was set too tight for this yarn, so I did loosen it. And something happened there, which involved the carriage running into my hand and getting a bruise on my hand. Trying to show the transfer tool here. And this is the increasing part for the dog sweater. You have to increase just about every row, which is extremely challenging after the first row or so. Normally, you would use your transfer tool and move the outer 2 or 3 stitches over. Then pick up the heel from the stitch on the main part, not the part you moved, but the part that's left. Pick up the heel of that first stitch and put it on the empty needle. However, when you have to increase every row, like in this dog sweater, it starts to get really tight and difficult to do. You can see that there I've moved out 2 stitches, and it's a bit of a challenge. So I started alternating between moving out 2 stitches, moving out 3 stitches, picking up the heel of that stitch. And no, I'm not drunk. I'm just holding the camera with one hand and trying to do the increase with my other hand. The True Tracy Way. Don't make it easy for myself. So here you can see I moved out 3 stitches to the left, picked up the heel, zoom across. I did 3 on that one. And then the next row I'd do 2, then the next row. So this made for kind of a lumpy front seam of the sweater. And I would actually recommend doing it maybe 2 and 4 stitches that you move across, or 1 and 3. I never like having my increase in between the first stitch and the second stitch though, because that's where you seam up. Yeah, it's hard grabbing that heel when you only have one hand. Come on. Get it up there. Just give it a little tug. The increases are done on both ends every row. If you wanted a lacy look, you could leave that empty needle out of work, just pull it forward, and it would give you a yarn over. See a bunch of increases there? Uh-oh. Better get those back on the needles. I think I dropped a stitch there. Yeah, the increase didn't knit. It will start to get really tight and difficult, so I would check after every row. Did I make the right row count? After doing all those increases, then you do a few rows straight. And apparently I did 1 row too many, so I had to rip that row out. In hindsight, I wouldn't have, because I made so many other mistakes that 1 extra row really doesn't matter, but it does mess up with what side of the bed your carriage is on. So to keep it the same as the pattern, I just ripped out that row. It's kind of fun ripping out a row on the knitting machine. Pull the yarn tight and then kind of wiggle it out of the hooks. Of course, again, this would be easier if I'd had a tripod for the camera. But no, I don't do easy. Keep it going. Make sure those stitches stay in their hooks. The last stitches can be tricky. And I unknit it, so I gotta reknit it. Like, really? Well, I had to get this untangled one-handed. So annoying. Those things are like simple, but if you look at it wrong, you'll get cross-eyed. The straight section after the increases isn't really shown on the schematic, but that's where we are. So here is the lovely dog coat. Somehow I managed to do 137 rows instead of 136. So you saw me ripping that out. And that means we are now at the part where it says armholes. We're going to start at the right edge, leaving the first 13 stitches in work position, WP, and bind off the next 10 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So these 13, I want to leave in work position. I'm moving them slightly forward so that we can see the difference. The next 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to cast off for the first armhole. You can do this with a separate piece of yarn and do a typical cast off, or you can do a chain through chain cast off, which is what I'm going to attempt to see if I can do it. I've got my latch tool here. I'm going to put the tool into it, slide it all the way forward, slip out a couple times, slide it back so it goes onto that latch. Then take the next stitch. I just lift it up and over. And one stitch is behind the latch, one stitch is in the hook, and just pull it up and over. Go into the next loop, yank it up and off, chain through it. Go into the next one. Needle won't stay put, just hold it down. And here we are, getting snagged. This whole project has been one issue. Through. Take that one off the hook. Put it through. Take it up off the hook. Pull it through. Try and keep my hands out of the way so it's not as easy for me as it would be for you. Now I have to recount because, of course, I lost track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The one on here is stitch 8. Just double checking that. That's 9. Push it out of the way. This is 10. Now this last stitch that we've cast off, we can just take it and put it onto the stitch next to it. My hand's gonna be in the way. Pardon me. This is what tutorials don't usually show you when you're struggling with this type of thing. Come on. Get on the latch. It still doesn't want to go on, so I'm going to take my transfer tool, put through the loop, and stick it on there. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stitches that I've pushed back in this little bit here. This can be rather tight because you don't have any working yarn through here. Another way to do it would be to use a length of waste yarn and do it in a traditional cast off way. And I think I'll show that on this one. You could also use waste yarn and knit a couple rows manually. If you wanted to get even more creative, you could have put the first group of stitches out and hold, and these ones out and hold, use the machine and waste yarn to go back and forth and knit on here, making sure that your needle side levers are in hold. There's a few different ways to cast off in the middle of the row, and it's not the easiest thing to do. Don't tend to do that very often. If you were hand knitting, you would just work across these stitches, cast off these ones, and continue on. No big deal. But when we go to work a next row, we can't just knit across this big gap. And it would take too long to move all these back over, close that gap, and we don't really need to. So that was step 1. Cast off the next 10 stitches. Place the next 70 stitches in hold position, D position, all the way forward. Push knitting back against the bed. Needles are all the way forward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I could probably count from that end a little bit quicker. We're gonna have 13 stitches over here, just like at the start. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Then we're gonna be casting off 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then these ones will all be step 2, hold position. Bind off the next 10 stitches. I'm going to show you how to do this with all the other needles in hold, including this first group. Okay, side lever is at 1, both side levers. It's going to slide right across. Put the yarn next to the last stitch that is out and hold. And I should have threaded it before I got over here. Would have made it easier. I'm going to take it across all the needles. And as I go, it's going to take up the slack, hopefully. And it's dropped down in between the ones that we want to cast off and the main part of the body. Now it's going to knit across those 10 and holding that yarn tail. What the heck? Just pull up that slack. And I'm going to add a claw weight here. And just go back on this armhole with some waste yarn for a few rows, making sure that it's not bulging too much. All right, that looks good. Find your scissors, cut your waste yarn, put this back in the clip so it doesn't spring into your face. Draw that back down and go back to your instructions. So this is number 3, bind off next 10 stitches for armhole 1. Place remaining stitches in hold position is step 4. Set Russell levers to the 1 position, both sides. Okay, that's step 5. Working on the 13 stitches on the right edge, using claw weights, work 12 rows. So I need to take my carriage back over here. I'm going to rethread the main yarn. I am going to keep this in 1 position because if I go too far, I don't want it to knit these guys. Okay. And I'm just going to push these back to C position. And hopefully this is going to work. Yep, it did. And now I'm going to manually count because I don't want to play with my yarn counter. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Move the claw weight up, especially at this edge here. 6, 6. I did 6 rows. 7, 8. Check the edge stitches. 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. So that was step 6. Working on the 13 stitches on the right edge. Work 12 rows. Now it says I should be at 48. Mine said 49, so I'm just going to set it back to 48. Set these needles to hold position all the way forward and cut the yarn. Stick this in the clip so you don't get spoiled in the face. Okay, and then step 7, push center stitches to C position. So the yarn is behind the latches. The latches are open. Oh, there is a magnet to do that for you. Slide the carriage past those ones that were in hold. Rethread the machine. And now on the center ones, step 7, 12 rows. Hold that tail so it doesn't get yoinked backed up. 1. My yarn is too tight. You know what I forgot to do? See these pink ones that I worked on waste yarn? I forgot to put them in hold position. So it knit them all. This one I did want it to knit and it didn't. So I need to unknit these ones across the pink. And of course it's going to drop it off because this project has been nothing but trouble. I'm going to move my claw weight up and that will help it. I'm not going to worry about casting off that pink yarn. It's just waste yarn. It's not a very slippery yarn, so it's not going to run anywhere. All right. Tighten up the slack and put these guys into hold with its neighbors. Make sure they're all in hold and the yarn isn't in the latches or anything. There we go. Now it's back over that stitch. Now we're going to work over those center 70 stitches for another 11 rows because I've already done 1. Make sure it picks up your slack and you have none of that happening. So I've done 1, row 2. You do not need to see me struggle with all 12 rows. I've done 8 rows and I checked my edge stitches and they were starting to lift up a little bit. So I've added some claw weights and I think I'll add one here in the middle as well. So that, what did I say? 8 rows? 9, 10. What happened here? We'll fix that later. If you're worried about it, just take a little clothespin or something to help hold that down. I believe that was 10. No, it should be an odd number. That was 11. My machine does not really like this yarn, I have discovered. This is not helping it. All right, I think that's 12. Okay, that was step 7. Cut yarn. And push to hold position. Flip the yarn. Push all these puppies to hold position. Okay. Now we've got these ones to work on. Step 8. Thread yarn between center and left section. Actually between the armhole and the left section. Bring it across the stitches. Thread up the machine as you pass that section that's in hold. A little wheel. It should draw up the slack. And now, oh, let's get those out of there. Push these last, what was it? 13? into upper work position. And all being well, which I mean, it's not really been something with this. Slowly go across. So that was one. Work 12 rows. 1, 2. You can see how this stitch here, oh, excuse my finger. This one here, the loop is way up at the top near the latch. Just give it a little yoink. You want your loops to come down. It's because there hasn't been enough weight on it. So it's just starting to rise up as we work on that section. So just keep your eye on that. You want all your, that's called the heel. We want all those to be well down from the latches. I've lost track of how many rows that was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That was 7 rows. And happened over here. I have 2 heels on there. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So our row counter should be at 48. Let's move that back to 48. You can knit 12 over each of these 3 sections, so they only close as 12. Close armholes. Bring all needles to upper work position with latches open, using a length of yarn for each armhole. E-wrap, cast on over the 2 armholes separately. Well, carriage is here in the middle of the machine. That's not really smart, is it? What I would have done, and I might change the pattern, is this section here. I would have started these 12 rows from this end, even though that throws off the balance because you had been working from this way to this way. If you start it here, then your last row, you would have ended up there, and then it would have been easier to go all the way across. The way this has it, I basically need to cut the yarn or get creative. So what I could do in this situation, because I have this waste yarn here, I could have just continued across and down the row. And then when it's time to open up the armholes, it's waste yarn. Just give it a cut. Same thing with the other side, except that there isn't waste yarn. So I have to show you what to do on that one. Each of these is different. What I'm going to do, and this is the thing with, especially with machine knitting patterns, you're always having to figure these things out. I'm going to unknit this row. Okay. I am going to take the carriage off. It's hard when it's got stitches in hold. Just give it a wiggle. Bring it all back to this end. Put it back on the guide rail. Those back. I am going to show you the Russell lever. So because we are going in that direction, we are going to turn this lever to the 2. 1 is when you're starting your short rows and putting things in hold. 2 is when you want it to actually knit the direction the carriage is going. So that's Russell lever on the right. And what's going to happen is that these needles that are in hold will knit, and I will have gotten my row 12 across here because I unraveled that first row. And I'm going to go across. Now knit across this waste yarn. Like I said, when it's time to do the armholes, you can just snip that and you'll have these stitches to put on needles or however you want to do it. But also these are now also live stitches. So be mindful of that. Don't snip it until you're ready to put all the stitches onto a needle or have a holder or something handy. Well, when I get across to the other one, it is just a big gaping hole right now. The instructions are saying to use waste yarn or another length of yarn and cast on over the 2 armholes separately. Well, because we're going to be picking up stitches, I think I want to have the live stitches here instead of something tight like that. If I just bring the needles into work, they're not going to actually knit. So I'm going to take the waste yarn, bring it over, and I'm just going to E-wrap these stitches with waste yarn. I hate E-wrap. I'm going to take my clip from over there. So I'm just going to E-wrap these 12. Then I'm going to knit back that way to give it a little bit more to grab onto. Pull through. You can do 2 at a time if your yarn cooperates. Because this was an E-wrap and not some sort of open cast on, these are now not going to unravel, but you'll still be able to easily pick them out to put the stitches onto a needle if you want to rib by hand. I'm just going to do 1 more row with the waste yarn. I'm doing 2 at a time, making sure they're in the latches. Now I'm going to cut this waste yarn, put it in the clip, clip both ends of the waste yarn together. I've still got it set on the 2, so it's going to keep knitting all of these that are in hold. And it will knit across the ones on the waste yarn. It might be a little bit tight. And I can see I've dropped a stitch. And if you're having to give it some force, be mindful. Don't put your hand right in front of it and then push it, because just like if you're using a mandolin slicer, it's going to go when you least expect it and take your hand with it. But it's not looking like it's going to budge. So now what? You might be thinking, I'm just going to take the carriage off again. Wiggle it. Pull it forward. Bring the yarn out so I can use it. Oh yeah, I've dropped a stitch over here. Get that back on. These ones on the waste yarn, it was still too tight. I should have done some more rows. So far, this video is not about how to knit this dog sweater. It's basically how not to knit it, right? And sometimes we have to learn what not to do first. Yes, that's my reasoning. I'm teaching you what not to do so that you will know how to do it. Just going to knit these ones by hand. Like I was saying, you know, when everything goes smoothly in a tutorial, what do you learn? Right? Okay, so the person doing the tutorial knows what they're doing. They can make something without any issue, but can you? Because of course your machine's probably not going to react the same way. Like my yarn is just perhaps a little bit too stiff for this machine. You didn't see it, but I just knit that one that I had dropped. So like, what should the row counter be now at? 48? Should be at 49. Slowly knit across all stitches. I think the carrot should be on the right. I'm going to have to rethread it. And really, this is a dog sweater. Don't forget that. Okay, this is not your human sweater. This is a dog sweater. So here's where the stitches were just too tight for me to actually knit across it. Now, because there's nothing left in hold, it's okay to leave that rustle lever off in position 2. And I see further down, oh my gosh, it missed a few more stitches. There, see that? Really? Okay, let's start with this single one. Can I do it while, no, I can't do it while holding the camera. It just popped down behind. So I'm gonna grab the fabric, find that loop that's behind it, stick it on that hook, lift this bar up, bring the hook forward, lay the yarn into the hook, and yank the fabric down. This one here, it's also, the stitch is popped off the needle. I'm gonna do the same thing. First priority is always to get the stitches back on the hook. So I'm not gonna work this loop yet because over here, there's 2 more that are off the hook. Let's get these babies on the hook. There's 1. There's 2. Now I've got 3 stitches in a pretty short distance here. And my yarn's not probably gonna like that. 1. Forward, lay the unworked yarn in the hook. And then this one, make sure that hook's open. Bring that forward. Use the little poker. Now those stitches are going to be a little bit tight on the next row, so just be mindful of that. And if your carriage ends up on the wrong side versus the right side, don't stress, slow down, read through the instructions. Work even for 31 more rows. Row count 80, carriage on right. Don't know if you can see, my carriage is on the left. Do I do 1 more row? Or do I reverse all the shaping? What I will do is just 1 more row because it is just a dog sweater. And if it's 1 row too big, well, give the dog a few more treats. So 1 more row. Carriage on right, I'm going to set the row counter back to 80. Now we're on the back shaping. Knit across, take the first 13 stitches off on waist yarn. So knit across, take the first 13 off on waist yarn. You can thread it through or you can knit them off depending on whatever you feel like doing. I am going to use this double eye needle because I have it handy on my waist yarn like that. So 1, 11, 12, 13. Move my claw weight so it doesn't drop on my foot. Cut the waist yarn, hanging onto the end so it doesn't sprung back and hit you in the face. Well, try not to remove your waist yarn. Clip the end there. Just going to do a little knot here. Then bring it all forward to D position. Then send them all the way back. All the way back so they don't accidentally knit again. All right, now step 2, knit across, take 13 stitches off. Knit across. And again, I'm going to take the 13 stitches off. Bring them forward. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And again, hold your waist yarn. Tie a little knot. Slide these all forward. And take them off. Make sure they go back. Move the claw weight. All right, that was step 2. Step 3, work 2 more rows. 1, do. Step 4, decrease 1 stitch each edge for 21 rows until 48 stitches remain. Now we're doing those angled parts on either side of the bottom section. 3-prong tool because it was handy. Slip them off. There, both sides. Move it over one. Put it back. Each edge for 21 rows. And we'll do it again. Make sure it goes in the latch or it will come off when you knit the row. Okay. You don't need to see me do this for 20. Oh. 1 rows. On something like this, so I don't go too far, I like to take a little marker, and it says until 48 stitches remain. So I'm going to make a mark. There's 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Because that's half of 48. And I'm going to make a mark there. So I know not to decrease past that one. And we're off one on the row counter. My goodness. Is it me that's off, or is it the pattern that was off? I still have one more to decrease here, and I'm already at 105. We'll move this over. Don't worry about things like that too much on something like this. Okay, last decrease, carriage on right. Work 5 more. I'm going to set the counter back. 1, 2, 5. Cut yarn. Woohoo! Work. Put 6 to 10 rows in waste yarn. Woohoo! 1, 8. All right. Knit 6 to 10 rows. I did 8. Take that off. Single band collar. This is done by hand on 6mm needles, but could be done on machine. Pick up 74 stitches along the edge you started with. Decrease from the 74 to 62. Well, you know what? I might as well show it on the machine. Since we're here, take off all the weights. Okay. Zip this off. Woohoo! Take off the cast on cones. Oh, does it matter if we put it on machine with right side facing or wrong side facing? Not really. I don't think. I'm going to put out 74 stitches. So 35 and 35 is 70, 72, 74, 35 times 2 is 70, 72, 74. Get rid of fishy. When you go to hang your beginning of work on the machine, and this is really awkward because of the increase, but what you are actually hanging is the in-between loops of the stitches that were being made. So for here example, I would put those on the hooks, and sometimes it's easier to start in from the edge and then work towards the edge. On the edge stitch, well, you should find you have, like, there's the loop, but there's the tail, because it's not going to be exactly the same because it's upside down. So I'm going to start in 3 stitches. Grab 3 with this, and it looks like I have 2 that I've missed, so I'm going to start there, then put these 2 on there, and then just go across. I'm using my 3 latch transfer tool, but if you're just starting, just use the 2. All right. So what if it takes you 10 seconds more? Try not to get the waste yarn though on the hook there, like I did. And just go across. Now theoretically you could double up the stitches as you're putting them on to get down to 62 stitches, but I'm just going to get them on first, and then we'll see. Now it's time to decrease from 71 to 62 stitches, I think it was. First, do a little bit of math to figure out how many stitches to leave in between the decreases, and pull the stitch out and move it over to the next one. I don't remember what that number was, but you don't even have to be all too accurate. Once I've done all the decreases, I will use my 3-pronged tool to move stitches over to fill in the gaps, because I don't like having those gaps where it loosens up the knitting, especially near the seam. Sometimes I'll move all the stitches over, but sometimes I get a little bored and I'll stop partway through. Just at least get the ones near the seam. I'm having trouble pushing the carriage because I haven't put the empty needles back. All right, here I'm dropping the first stitch down to do the ribbing. Never, ever, ever drop the edge stitch when you have to reform the ribbing. I learned the hard way. Never. Take in an extra stitch when you seam if you have to. Never try to convert that edge stitch. I dropped them all the way down. I used my little transfer prong to try to separate the rungs a bit. And then I will put the latch tool into the last cream loop and zip them up. If the stitch that you're latching up is one that you did the decrease on, make sure that you grab both loops of the stitches you used for the decrease. Once you got it on, make sure it goes back onto the hook nicely. Skip a stitch and drop the next one. And you're just going to have to repeat that all the way down that ribbing. We had 62 stitches. You're doing every other one. So it's about 31. Give or take 1 or 2 on the edge. Sometimes the math doesn't work out. I don't mind doing a small bit like this, but even 62 stitches felt a little bit long by the time I was done. Yeah, so you can see when I got down to the right end, I did transform the third from the end. Then the next one doesn't get changed, and that left the very end stitch. And again, never ever try to convert that one. Here it says to cast off in ribbing, which when you're doing it by hand is actually pretty easy to do. But on the machine, I just did a quick and dirty, move it over, cast it off. I put on the first stitch, I hooked it back on the needle so that the weight was spread across the bed rather than falling off. Getting down to the last couple. I'm so happy that this was almost done. Although, of course, there's always so much finishing to do after you get it off the knitting machine. Yay! I'm just going to hook it up there so that when I cut the yarn and pull it through, it doesn't just drop the whole thing off onto my feet. Otherwise, the weight from the sweater would have pulled it through that last stitch, and then it would just all fall down. All right. It's not a very stretchy cast off that I did. It's not the one I would usually do. Might be worth it to actually take it off on the needles and do a proper cast off. But now it's time to get rid of that waste yarn. I'm going to snip it very carefully or pull it through. I'm going to snip the other end. This is, of course, the start of our knitting on the machine, so it's upside down, basically, and you can't just unravel it from the end of the waste yarn. You can try that once. Once is all you need. So once you've snipped that last stitch on that row, just pull your tail. It might break like that did. Just grab it again. Pull some more. Pull, pull, pull. Pull. And if it gets too bunched up, just give it a snip and start again. Snip. Because you're excited to almost be done, be really careful when you snip. It is so easy to snip the wrong part. There's the end. I'm going to pull again. Is it going to come all the way through this time? Is it? Is it? No. I'm going to snip it again. Stretch it out so it pulls that yarn back in and it just pops off. Get that tail. Oof. Oh, and there it goes. And that can just be discarded. If you're ambitious, you can unravel it. Time to sew it up. Done the top band. Have not done the bottom band. Step 1, bottom band. Sew center front seam from top of collar ribbing to beginning of back shaping. So that would be there, I guess. And I'm going to do mattress stitch, and I should have left a longer tail. Why not? Something else. Everything going wrong, including my scissors are way across the room. And so is the other color of yarn that I need. And I hate this needle. It's lost all its chrome. Won't focus because it's... All right, let's get to sewing this up. Need a bit more purple because even though it's for a dog and it doesn't really show, I don't know. Sometimes I'm picky. Sometimes I could care less. So I'm going to sew from where we casted off the ribbing. And as I showed, now that we're on the right side, you can see this side has 2 knit stitches on the end, and this side only has 1. So to make it look nice, I'm going to do away with that whole edge stitch and do away with the whole edge stitch on the other side that has the 2 knit stitches. Does that make sense? On this side with the single knit stitch on the edge, I'm going in right on the edge of it, roll it out because it wants to roll in. 2 bars. Over to the other side, go in where it came out. Go 2 bars. That probably doesn't really show you anything worth seeing. And go up. And go in where you came out. Go up 2 bars. Across 2 bars. 2 bars. 2 bars. 1 bar at the end. Tighten this up. Nope, wrong direction. And then I'll just use the tail to kind of fiddle that in so it looks a bit better. So you can see it still looks like ribbing there. Cut this purple. And switch to the beige. Sew up the body part. Good grief. I usually measure about twice. 1, 2, a bit more. My needle's still in here. Can you see it now? Oh, it's not really. I'll edit that out. You didn't need to see the top of my head. Okay. Continue where I left off. And this time we'll just take 1 whole stitch from each side. First beige bar, go under it. and up 2. Go across. We'll go in the purple one. Go up 2, making sure that we're going in between the column of stitches, and back over to the other side. 2 bars in where you came out. 2 bars. Don't pull it tight yet. Leave it with the ladder. Go up 2 bars. 2. Across and 2. This is so stiff. This yarn. Do not like it. And up 2. And we keep doing that. Up the seam. After you've gone for a little bit like that, hold the end and just work it through. Making sure it's not too tight. See, you don't want to pull those seam stitches too tight. Give it a little stretch again, and then continue on sewing up the side to where those stitches were taken off on the waist yard. Almost to the waist yarn. Under 2, under 2, under 2. Tighten up that thread, stretch it back out. There we go. There's the seam. Not entirely invisible, but good. Let's put some stitches on the needle to rib. Take out the knot. With right side facing and using 6mm needles, oops, well, I think I got 5.5, 4.5. Start at center front seam and pick up, work 13 stitches from the front edge holder, waist yarn, 23 across the back shaping, that's that angled part, 48 from the waist and back again for the other side. Ribbit in the round. So let's start off with the 13 from here. Now this first one and the last one are actually on the inside of the seam. Okay, I'm going to leave them to the end. And just pick up from this waist yarn, which means that that will be 12 instead of 13. Now, if I was going to knit it flat, I would need those, and then I would seam those in. The back shaping 23. So 23, the shaping and the 5 rows. How many rows of shaping was there? 21 or so, wasn't there? 21 rows plus 5 is 28, and we need 23. So it's almost 1 per row. I'm going to skip the first one. Go in there. Oh, should I have knit those ones? Pick up and work 13 stitches. Yeah, I guess so. Okay. The joy of circulars. Bring it back. knit. Let's leave a long tail, just in case we need it. I've been having a hard time figuring out if this is just like a flap over the back, like some of the dog coats. I'm pretty sure this one goes over the belly as well. So that's why I'm going to do this back bit in ribbing in the round. Okay, I'm going to skip one and go in there. I am going to think ahead and put a marker in there. Ooh, I'm thinking ahead on something. So that I can just keep count from there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to skip 1, 5, 6, 7, 8. Skip 1, 9, 10, 11, 12. Skip 1, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I need 5 more. I've got quite a few there left. Okay, I'm going to go back out here and do more. 5, 6, 7, 8. Now skip 1, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I split it. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I also had 1 row too many, didn't I? In that shaping. So I have to actually skip more stitches, not less. And we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, skip 1, 4, 5, 6, skip 1, 7, 8, 9, skip 1, 10, 11, 12, skip 1, 13, 14, 15, skip 1, 16, 17, 18, skip 1, 19, 20, skip 1, 21. So it's about every 3 stitches, skip 1. And then to get off the waste yarn, I am going to start at the far end and feed my needle through the last row of the main yarn. Feed through and pause. All right, I've got them all on. And the waste yarn is just super easy to pull out. Not like when it's at the beginning of the work. When it's at the end of the work, it is super simple. Boop, there it goes. Now let's go across these ones. I'm just doing this whole first round as if they were knit stitches. And this way, when you start the rib in the second round, you don't get this little bumps of a first color. Come back in a minute. If you wanted to do this bottom ribbing on the machine, you could. But you would have to do it before you seam up the center seam, because you won't be able to stretch it across your needle bed with that sewed up. So if you want to do it on the machine, do it before you seam it up. I don't mind having something to hand knit because I would much rather sit in this comfy chair than sit on the hard chair I have at my knitting machine with my head bunched over. Something like 120 stitches. And I don't want to have to convert all those stitches to ribbing. If you happen to have a machine with a ribber, go for it. But I don't anymore. So now I'm across the end. I'm going to go down the side that was shaped. 1, 2, 3, skip 1, 1, 2, 6, skip 1, 7, 8, 9, skip 1, 10, 11, 12, skip 1, 13, 14, 15, skip 1, 16, 17, 18, skip 1, 19, 20, My needle's coming unscrewed. 20 and 21. Okay, and now I'm back to these 13 that we took off on the needles. I'm going to take the other end of my circular, feed those on, skipping that very first one that was used in the seam. So I've got 12 here. And 12 and float. And knit across these. Somehow I got them twisted. So I'm knitting through the back loops and I split that one. Now these two that were used for the seam, feed your yarn tail through them and secure them. Oh, my throat's sore. Allergies. Take my needle and secure them with the yarn tail. There. I'll deal with that later. Okay. Now it's just a matter of one by one ribbing. Round and around. Something interesting about this impeccable, there is no yarn gauge listed on the ball band. Isn't that weird? There is this little bit for a pattern that's on the inside of the label, but there is no gauge given for the actual yarn. That's odd. Looks like I might have to magic loop this. All right, no, maybe not. Oh, isn't that interesting? I must be a goldfish today, I forgot. I did start off the first 13 stitches with ribbing them. You can see how those little white bumps would show. Oh well, okay, whatever. Just go with it. And we'll see at the end when I come around if I need to add a stitch to make the ribbing work out or not. I do have those 2 stitches from the seam. I can play with those. And we'll see in a minute. Apparently I didn't take any video of finishing the ribbing around the body. So we'll move on. All I have are pictures of the next few steps. This is that first armhole that I made where I cast off the stitches using the loop through loop cast off. I don't really recommend it. It was too tight and stiff. So you need to pick up around the 4 sides of the armhole. I did a little bit of math and I also fudged it a little bit so that the numbers worked out better. Just followed the instructions, picked up around the armhole, and did 1 by 1 ribbing for whatever it was it said in the pattern. When it's for something like this, don't be afraid to fudge the numbers if you have to. If you're doing 2 of something like the armholes, just try to make them both the same. The second armhole was a little bit easier. I just cut the waste yarn in the middle between the top where I sort of cast it off and the top where we put on the new stitches, and ripped it out and picked up the stitches all around. I at least tried to be tidy when I picked up the stitches. Going around, I pick up a full stitch from the edge, not through the edge stitch. Here, I'm showing how I was affected by the True Tracy Way on the very last step I had to do. I was casting off for the leg, and I thought I was done and cut my yarn. But no, I still had 1 side left to cast off. Extra yarn ends for me to sew in. Yay! Here's the little dog sweater. It's a little plain the way it is. Maybe it needs some embroidery on the back, but it's done and I'm going to donate it. So that's it for how not to make a dog sweater. If you want to get the pattern, check the link below in the description and you can try it yourself. And hopefully you have much better luck than I did and it goes smoothly for you. If you enjoyed this tutorial and finding out all the ways that you shouldn't do something, then click the like and the subscribe. It really helps me out. Thanks a lot.